being recorded.
It's so aggressive. Got it.
I want everybody to know, no lawsuits.
I know, right? But I feel like we had a different voice last time. But anyway.
Right. She's a little more European than you.
Yeah. Super.
Making you uncomfortable that she's trying to tell you what to do.
Like, hey, come on now. They're everywhere.
Yeah. It is good to see you, Queen. How you doing?
I'm blessed and highly favored. I can't complain, won't complain, and have no need to complain. But other than that, I've just been busy. Oh, very busy. How about you?
Yeah, I'm good. Been tending to some health is wealth, and that's been my thing lately. Health is wealth, and sometimes we forget it, because if you don't have that, you really don't have anything. Like, you really can't do the things and live how you want to live if your body, if your mental is not healthy. And also sometimes we forget it. Even if I work in wellness, even if you do, you sometimes forget it. You know.
Come on.
And so that has been my thing lately, is tending to my health. So that's what I've been focusing on. I'm transitioning in the middle of selling my house. And you mentioned this painting in the background.
I did.
And I'm trying to get rid of everything. I'm going through getting rid of everything, and that, like, selling the house, selling all the things. But I'm like, some of the things I need to keep. Like, I don't know, I'm not gonna have a home to put it in, but I need this in a box somewhere until I figure out a place. Like, I can't get rid of everything. And so I'm trying to detach, but then it's hard. Like, I'm putting stuff on Facebook to sell, and people are like, oh, I'll take it. And I'll be like, actually, I'm having to take this down. I'm having to take this down. And some people will say, I'll see you took the so-and-so down. And I'm like, yes, just give me time. Give me time. Detach.
No, definitely, you definitely have to hold on to that. For those who can't see, that is a Stacey Monday painting, and that will definitely be worth millions of dollars. I'm claiming it at some point in the future, for sure. Stacey Monday is an awesome artist.
Come on, investment.
Come on, investment. Look, we didn't do our song, but welcome Black to the podcast, Black Around the World. Normally we like to sing it, but I'm telling you, one day we are going to actually have a legit intro. But our podcast is curated with the intention of creating a communal space. We have conversations over healing, liberation. We connect the community. We're just Black around the world, everywhere, Black people globally. And, you know, I definitely want to make sure that this podcast not only inspires you, but it gives you some type of creativity to take back to wherever you're from, and, you know, share whatever nuggets that you pick up from the podcast. And we have definitely a great episode today. I know you've known Araba longer than I have, but when I did my deep dive today, I definitely did some stalking on her IG, and I'm like, yo, she's legit. She's super legit. And then obviously,
on our podcast.
Yeah, you know, I know. And then obviously, you know, if you've listened to the previous episodes, we've had a lot of conversations about, you know, Blackness, anti-Blackness, even, you know, boundaries, all these great things. And so it makes so much sense that we're going to have her on and talk to her about what she's doing and for the community, for herself, and just what she wants to see the future to be for Black people globally. You like that? That rhymed. Do you have any moments in community right now? Anything you want to share with the people?
Moments in community. I think my moment in community was my mom. Just like I said, I haven't been feeling well. I'm in transition. There's a lot changing in my life, and I'm grateful to have my mom. She lives in another state, and I was able to visit her, cry, have my moment and cry with her, and then talk about other things that I wanted to talk about. And so,
You drove to Houston?
Yeah, I did drive to Houston. So yeah, my moment in community is with my mother. What about you?
Let's see. Well, I would say I've been at work. I've been working a lot, but we just recently came back from Austin. It was Public Policy Day. And, obviously, like a lot of us, we vote when it's time for the presidency, but being there and listening to like representatives, especially Black representatives, talk about how important it is to just be involved in your community and also be involved with local elections. It was eye-opening for me. One representative, he went off on us. He was like, yeah, today's Public Policy Day, but are you going to come back? Are you still going to be active? I was like, okay, bit aggressive, but you're right. Like, we have to do our part. So I know I'm definitely going to make an effort into just being more involved in my community. Like, for instance, we have a park that I like to take my son to, and they posted, we have some grant money. We want to make some renovations to the park. We want the community to come out and, kind of tell us what you want to see. And it's like, that's a prime example. I can't really get mad if they put something there that I don't want to see if I'm not in the conversation. So I think my message is to the community, just to be involved in the community. So that was my moment and message, seriously, because I mean, a lot of things happen under our nose, and then we get mad when it's not something that we like.
You gotta find ways. So it seemed like a great experience for you to realize, you take it up a notch as far as, if you want to complain about it, let me, see how I can be involved in, creating the narrative.
That part, I felt so revolutionary too, because everybody's in Austin for like South by Southwest, and I'm like, I'm at the Capitol, bro. Like, we're knocking on doors.
I'm at the Capitol. I'm over here trying to influence policy. What you doing?
Exactly.
At a concert right now.
I love it. No lie, though, I did want to go to a concert, but
right. All of it's valid. Anyway,
balance. It's all about balance.
But you, that's amazing. That's amazing. You mentioned, did you have anything else to share? I'm sorry.
No, that was the major takeaway. Other than that, I've just been locked in my office working, getting ready for all these events that we've had and will be having.
Awesome. Can't wait to hear more about those. But you did mention Araba and how aligned she is with the podcast. So I'm excited to bring her into the conversation. First, really telling the people about who she is and more. I think I'm still learning about her. And I think we discussed, have we ever met in person, Araba? I don't know. We.
You know what? I can't tell if we have. It feels like we have, but I don't know. That might just be us filling in the blanks between digital communication.
It doesn't make sense that we haven't. But we met online around this time last year because I wanted her to be a speaker at one of the events I was planning in Ghana. And then I love how it's full circle. A year later, we're still somehow in community and in each other's orbit. So I'm happy to bring her on, and would love for you to kind of give us a synopsis of who you are.
That elusive question that sounds so simple, but it's also really difficult to answer. So my name is Araba Ofori-Acquah. I'm Ghanaian British. I am a healer, a DJ, a cultural curator, and a writer. But really, aside from all of those titles and everything, who I actually am is just, I'm someone who I believe my calling is to help people heal, especially Black people, and to help Black people connect to our heritage, our shared heritage. So everything that I do, even the DJing, I've had people like, oh, you're a DJ, that's so random, that's so opposite to wellness. It's not at all. It's everything that I do is with this common thread of basically helping people to feel better and helping Black people to feel connected. Yeah, so that's my answer.
I love that. So I stalked your IG this morning and I listened to one of your playlists. I was like, okay. Yeah, I listened to the playlist. I took what type of morning person are you quiz.
Oh my gosh, you really went in.
I know.
Did you do the morning quiz? Did you see the playlist? Did you?
Okay, so wait, which morning mood did you get? What was your type?
So it's so funny because it says I'm a meditator. And
Mm.
to me, that just equates to go back to sleep. You know, honestly, I'm really trying to work on that. I think I naturally meditate, and I just don't call it that because I'm an artist, so I paint. I spend a lot of time just like in my own head. But when I say I'm going to meditate, it just never goes well. It ends up like me.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, definitely like creating art and dance and things like that are all also forms of meditation, right? So it's also important that we start to, especially as Black people, unlearn this idea that meditation is only sitting with your legs crossed and saying or whatever. But also, because I am an advocate for meditation, that kind of meditation, I would also say try like different styles of meditation. It might just be that the ones you're trying are not for you. There's so many different types of meditation. So yeah, just maybe try some other ones and see.
Yeah, you hit it right on the nail. When I try to sit still, cross my legs, then I start feeling all these aches. I'm like, my back hurts, my legs are going numb. It's so weird, but I notice when I just kind of like sit and find something creative to do, I'm like, this got to be meditation.
Exactly,
you know?
Definitely.
I mean, I don't know if you agree, Araba, but I think anything that brings you into the present moment is meditation.
Right.
You know, so like if you're painting and you're just really in it and you're present, you know, it's possible. When you're not in the past, you're not in the future, you're here. Like to me, that's meditation.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. It's poetic.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think one of the benefits with, you know, what we tend to call meditation, but that specific kind of silent meditation is that, yes, it brings you into the present moment, but it also helps you to become more aware of your own thoughts and feelings. Because, you know, when you're creating art or doing something else, though you're processing your thoughts and feelings, sure, by putting them into the artwork, but you don't necessarily get the same ability to kind of watch your thoughts, or like, you know, sometimes when you're meditating, you can be like, oh, I actually am feeling like sad, and I didn't think I was sad. I've just been like going. But now that I'm just really here with my thoughts, I recognize that I'm feeling sad, and I think it's because of this, this, and this. Yeah, that's the only thing that I would say I really like seated meditation for, just becoming so much more aware of your thoughts and your feelings.
Sounds very intentional.
Yeah.
So, Ray, do you want to kind of give Araba a backstory of our anti-Blackness conversations and why she's so perfect today?
Yeah, around the time that we have been discussing, kind of dabbling with it on the podcast, we saw your post and and I already had saw your book, which we'll talk about later. I was like, I want to talk to her about that. And then you posted about something that really aligned with what we were talking about in that moment. And anti-Blackness was one of the things that we have been talking about. And I think with a podcast that's devoted to Black people, I think like on the bringing the awareness of anti-Blackness and the awareness that it exists and the need to unlearn it for ourselves is really important for this podcast. When we're talking about building community, we're talking about being in community, and I think that how that shows up, and so that it was brought up in the podcast because someone made a comment that we felt was anti-Black, and so we've been kind of working through that and discussing what that could look like, and discussing what it looks like to still be in conversation and community with someone who may, you know, hold those views, and which to me, we all have it in us because we've all been entrenched in this system, and it's just a matter of covering it when it comes. And so definitely want to bring you into the conversation, and just to, before, because not everybody's familiar with anti-Blackness, the term, just to give people an awareness of what it is. Anti-Blackness refers to the systemic and institutionalized discrimination, oppression, and prejudice against Black people based on their race. It's a form of racism that is very specific to Black people. And it's rooted in historical ongoing systems of white supremacy. So which we can discuss. You see it in the justice system, you see it in wealth gaps, you see it in housing, you see it in different things. And I know that, I don't know about you, Queen, but I know, like, being an American, I've thought of it as an American thing, American pride. But like talking to people like Araba and seeing your posts, it's global. And so definitely wanted to bring you into the conversation on anti-Blackness and how that shows up globally and impacts us.
Yeah, it definitely shows up globally. And I think there's kind of two sides to it, right? There's the systemic side, which does show up globally, even in majority Black countries. And I think that's what a lot of people don't get. Like, anti-Blackness is what's the word I'm looking for? Like, woven into the fabric of places like countries in Africa, for example. So there's the systemic side, but then there's also the individual side. And as you said, all of us, no matter what race we are, we all have anti-Blackness within us, because that's the way we are conditioned, that's the way we're socialized. So I think it's really important that, as well as recognizing that it's a global problem at the systemic level, we also all try our best to recognize it within ourselves, because especially if you consider yourself like a Pan-African or like a proud Black man, woman, non-binary, then it can be really easy to think that it doesn't apply to you. But actually, it's so insidious, it's so deeply embedded that we're all enacting it every day, all the time, from very obvious things like, oh, I only date light-skinned women, which, very obvious, but even down to, some of the perceptions that African Americans have about Africans and Africans have about African Americans, and just all of the division within our different groups, all of that also often boils down to anti-Blackness. And then, as we're going to talk about later, it also does a disservice to us because it stops us from connecting with certain parts of our heritage that we might think are backwards or have been demonized or whatever. So, things like African spirituality, talking to our ancestors, the disregard of African spirituality is also a symptom of anti-Blackness. So yeah, I'm going to stop talking now. I just said a lot.
What you said about anti-Blackness impacting our relationships within the diaspora, which I was just having a conversation with someone. I don't even want to say get the European country she grew up in. She's Ghanaian, but grew up in it. She was talking about how when we get try to be westernized and be so wherever we are, we want to be aligned with westernized or white supremacy. We don't realize it. And then we start to shit on each other and look at each other as an issue or the problem, whatever it is. It's just like that, the system is working. Like it's
working really well.
It's like we have to know that doesn't serve us, one, and two, we're stronger together, and three, like that's a part of anti-Blackness. It's like when you think we each other are the problem, like and you're not looking at the greater picture. I mean, obviously there are things that we need to be held accountable for, but when it gets to this like negative narrative where we're like comparing each other putting each other against each other, making it seem like we're each other's problem. Like white people's up there, like yes, y'all go fuss, y'all go argue. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like a really good example of this is I think it was last year or the year before when there was this whole row about Black British actors stealing roles from African American actors. And I do think, you know, there's an important conversation there to be had about who gets to play what roles. But it was also just so frustrating because it's like, okay, but why are there so few interesting roles for Black people to play that we're now having to argue between ourselves that, oh, this British person is stealing this role from me? Like, no, you should be angry at the fact that there aren't enough roles in the first place, you know? Yeah.
I agree. I just actually recently seen a post that said African Americans need to stop playing Africans in movies. And it's just like, it's so weird, but it's like it goes back hand in hand. It's like, why, first of all, are there so few roles? And second of all, African Americans are Africans. You know?
Right. Right. You know, but what's interesting is that with that comparison, it also throws up, sorry, I don't know if we're meant to talk about this in this episode, but it also throws up the issue of privilege within Black communities, right? Because, you know, it's one thing, Black British actors versus African American actors, but it is true that, you know, African actors do have less access and less resources and less connections and are less likely to be cast in big movies. So I don't think that it's true that African Americans shouldn't play Africans, whatever that means. But I do think that there is a certain privilege that African Americans and Black British people have that African actors aren't afforded. So I can see how that can be frustrating when there's an opportunity to give a role to an African from the continent, and that isn't often taken.
Do you think that that's something that African Americans, British people are to be aware of, or is it still a greater issue of like you the casting director, producer, whoever's in charge of casting, they're just not looking at Africans as people who could, continental people, we're gonna say continental people, as people who could be in these roles, or what responsibility? Because I think about that a lot with a lot of things where there's always a greater issue, but what responsibility we have. I think about that American in Ghana. What's my responsibility, you know, with the privilege? Because privilege is what it is, you know.
That's a really good question. I think in terms of the movie example, it's difficult because a lot of the time we are not the people making the decisions, right? So like if someone wants to cast, if I'm an African American actor and someone wants to cast me to play, I don't know, Mugabe, I don't know why he's in my head, then like, okay, I'm gonna say yes. But I think what can be done is, you know, there's a lot of people at the moment, especially, you know, in the entertainment industry, who are trying to reach back to African countries and have impact. So I think Idris Elba just announced that he's setting up a production house or something like that in Ghana. He came on a trip recently. And then, you know, you have, I can't think of an example, but musicians, Chance the rapper, Chance and Vic Mensa also coming to do, you know, bringing African Americans to Ghana, but also wanting to do stuff to develop the musical talent here. So I think it's one of those things where it's like, it's so annoying because we're not in the positions of power, but at the same time, if we do want to elevate as a global Black community, we still have to try and reach down or back to others who don't have opportunity as we're pulling ourselves up as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, like, transitioning to like how the conditioning and how it impacts us within community. I think that a lot of, and if we can think of some things that people maybe not aware, that's like anti-Blackness showing up. But I remember when I was just coming, because to me, anti-Blackness is it's pretty new to me. I think it's new to a lot of people, would like within the last few years. And I remember talking to a friend, and she was like trying to work out something with a community member, and the community member was just, it was another Black woman, and she was like being really rude and mean to her. And I was like, wow, dang. I said, where do you think that came from? She was like, I'm a Black woman. I think it was the Anti-Blackness. Like, we can espouse it. It's like, what value do you see in this other human? Would you talk to someone else that's one of your white counterparts like that? I even think about that in predominantly Black workspaces, and how we sometimes get it can be this like infighting, but it's just like, no, if we saw each other as more valuable and as equal, and didn't hold these beliefs, then I think we could commune better, whether it's predominantly Black, whether it's trying to get, something done within the community. And that's really, yeah.
No, I was just going to say, and also, anti-Blackness doesn't only affect how we treat other Black people, it also affects how we treat ourselves. So, again, a really obvious example might be skin bleaching, or, the hair conversation is, can be a bit of a touchy subject. I don't think that necessarily you are holding anti-Black beliefs if you wear a weave, for example. But I think it's really important that we question, okay, but why do I only wear a weave? Why do I never want anyone to see my natural hair? Why do I think my natural hair is ugly? If it's, okay, no, I actually love my natural hair, but I also love wearing a weave because it feels nice, it feels silky, whatever, or because it's easier at work. That's an unfortunate truth. Then, wear as many weaves as you want. But I think for a lot of us, the work is understanding, am I doing this because I want to, or am I doing this because I am holding certain beliefs about who I am as a Black woman, man, whoever?
That's real. So I have a question in regards to, I know on your Instagram, you spoke about how community healing is way more important than individual healing. And so do you think that all plays into the whole anti-Blackness, and as far as, us healing each other first, in a sense?
So I wouldn't say that community healing is more important than individual healing. I would say that they have to be hand in hand, because in a lot of the Western wellness rhetoric that's happening right now, there's this really dangerous, in my opinion, idea that if I achieve enlightenment, I'm raising the collective consciousness, and therefore I've done my part for humanity. And it's like, okay, that's so individualistic, it's so wild. It's so wild. And I feel like it really gives people a free pass to tap out of social issues. Which, another thing is people saying like, oh, spirit transcends race. So, the interplay of all of these things is just so individualistic, right? Whereas in African tradition, the individual is part of the community. The individual sustains the community sustains the individual. So it's not that it should be only community healing. We can't heal the community if we're not looking at ourselves, if we're not trying to heal ourselves. But I do believe that the two should be taken together. And also that healing doesn't have to be lonely, definitely there will be parts of it that will be lonely, but anything that we're doing on our wellness journey, we can actually elevate it by bringing it into community. So whether that is, okay, I've been cooking healthy meals or whatever, great, really good for your health, wonderful. How about sharing those meals with friends, or like, inviting everyone over, everyone brings a dish, because eating is about so much more than just the nutrients. There's actually a study that shows that when you enjoy the meal and when you're connected to the meal, you actually absorb more nutrients anyway. So this whole thing of, clean eating or whatever, it doesn't really make sense, because you need that cultural connection, you need that community aspect that comes with eating as well. So yeah, that's just an example. I think it's all about prioritizing our individual healing as part of a community, rather than just so that we can achieve enlightenment and leave everyone in the world behind.
It's funny you should say that. It seems like food is always the center of every gathering that we have, good or bad. And clearly it stems from, our history. That's cool.
Yeah, food is such an important part of the culture. It's a hugely important part of the culture. And, whether we're talking about specific African countries, or talking about Haiti, or talking about African American food, like wherever Black people are, that food holds a history, that food holds a connection to our ancestors. So it's really important that we don't start kind of doing away with it because we're trying to be healthy. Because again, that's another form of anti-Blackness, the lies that have been told about our diets. Yes, true, there are like some aspects of our diet that maybe aren't that good for us, but as a whole, Black foods in general are actually healthy foods, or if they're cooked correctly, are healthy foods, and they connect you with your ancestors, they connect you with your community, and that connection makes the food even better for you and makes the whole experience more of a wellness experience.
Yeah.
Did you grow up, I guess, practicing African-centered wellness?
No, I grew up in a very Christian household. Yeah, like a lot of continental Africans, I would say, split between Christian and Muslim. Yeah, I grew up in a very Christian household, and I would say that we practice African wellness without conceptualizing it as that, right? Like we would have family gatherings, we would have these community events, we would eat our local food, we would listen to Ghanaian music, sitting with elders. I was able to spend a lot of time with my grandmother because she moved in to help my mom raise us. So all of these different things I would say are part of African wellness, but they were just life. And then, so how did I get here? So yeah, grew up very Christian, like a lot of teenagers, went through an agnostic phase, but I always knew I believed in God. I just wasn't sure about the rest of the stuff. So getting to my early 20s, I experienced a really bad depressive episode. And it was one that kind of made me realize that I had been really struggling with anxiety and depression for most of my life, but just without the language or the understanding of what it was. So in healing from that depression, I started therapy. Therapy saved my life. It was, incredible. And part of the work in therapy was about identity. And I started to realize that I had been denying my Africanness, denying my Ghanaian heritage, toning down my Blackness because I was trying to be a successful career woman in London. So then that kind of triggered a journey of, okay, so now I want to reconnect with my culture, reconnect with my heritage. So there were these two different journeys, a wellness spiritual journey, and then a heritage journey. And at a certain point, I was like, why are these separate? Why can't I bring them together? So I started researching African spirituality. And what I found wasn't for me because it was really other religions, and religion in general just isn't for me. I respect and appreciate all religions, but it's not the path for me. So I basically was like, okay, well, the only way to merge my spiritual and heritage path is to either become initiated in Ifa or practice hoodoo or Vodun. And I didn't really want to do any of that. So I guess through a process of researching, speaking to my ancestors, connecting with my ancestors, having conversations with other people, and eventually moving to the continent, I kind of found myself, I cultivated African-centered wellness for myself. And, you know, it's dynamic. I'm still learning, I'm still changing things, but it definitely wasn't something that I grew up in. It was something that I kind of came to, well, my ancestors pulled me to later in life.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
That's beautiful. I mean, I think you definitely spoke to how there was a bit of anti-Blackness there, or kind of that was disconnecting you from your roots, that kind of realizing that, and that kind of sent you, when you realized that, then you were able to properly go down that journey. And one of the things, you just wrote a book, which is amazing.
Oh, I actually have it here.
Put it up. Return to Source. That's a beautiful book, and I'm excited to like dive in, talking about that. That's a big deal. I would hope to be an author one day. So inspired by it. But you kind of spoke to, I think like you've been posting, and just spoke to how sometimes we can be separated from the thing that unites us. And so that things and traditions that unite us. I know if I'm speaking for just African Americans, a lot of things we've been taught to be ashamed of, and that definitely back to the anti-Blackness. We've been taught to deny our connection to the ancestors. We even thought to see them as evil and the reason for our problems. I mean, that's some crazy, crazy stuff like that. Obviously, that's working just how they plan, but
Exactly.
It often disconnects us. And so I'm excited to dive into something. I feel like this is probably an ode to the ancestors. You're talking about African-centered wellness. Can you give me a synopsis of the book, and tell us about it?
Yeah, sure. So this book is, I honestly think it's a work of the ancestors. If I hadn't written it, they would have written it through someone else. It is not intended to be a book on African spirituality, and that's very intentional because I want people of all religions to understand that they can still connect to African-centered wellness. They can still connect to some of the gifts left by our ancestors and do that in a way that doesn't go against their religion. So in the book, I talk a little bit about identity in the beginning. And then I present the 3 seeds of African-centered wellness, which are music and movement, Mother Earth, and magic. And then within each section, I share, each section has 3 chapters. So within each chapter, I talk a little bit about what the practice was like in traditional Africa. So, for example, there's a chapter on dance, there's a chapter on food, we were talking about food, there's a chapter on herbal healing, a chapter on ritual. So for each chapter, I talk about what the traditional way of doing things is. And then I talk about what we can take from that to incorporate into our modern wellness routines. Because I think one of the dangers that we fall into when we're reclaiming our heritage, reclaiming our ancestors, we can get a bit dogmatic about it. And we can tend to be like, oh, we have to do everything exactly as the ancestors did it. And that's just not the case. Times change. We are in a different age. And so I do believe that it's up to us to modernize some of these traditions, or to just take inspiration from them and apply them in a way that suits us. So that's what I talk about in the book, basically.
What's the importance of the diaspora? Who are you wanting this book to be for?
So this book is for all Black people. All Black people around the world, whether you are African American, Jamaican, Kenyan, biracial, multiracial. It's for all of us, because this this knowledge, this wisdom is for all of us. It's shared, you know. People like to say, oh, you can't, you can't talk about Africa as if it's just one country, and you absolutely can't. But when you look at our traditions, you can see some common threads that thread through all of them, not just African, African American, South American. You can see certain threads like community that we mentioned earlier, and ancestors. Again, you can see threads that join all of us. So the book is really for every Black person, no matter what faith, no matter what location. It's written from my perspective. So, it may lean a little bit more towards the British experience, or like the British Ghanaian experience. But I've tried as much as possible to make it so that wherever you are, whatever your heritage, you get something from the book, even if that something is the motivation to go and research more about your specific tradition,
So that would be the major takeaway you would want people to get once they read your book.
I think the major takeaway would be I can live a healthy life in a way that honors my culture and my heritage, whatever that looks like for you.
I love that. You speak a lot about rituals. Can you give me an example of what a ritual would be? Because here, obviously, when we're going back to the whole anti-Blackness conversation, rituals can look a certain type of way, when you're like, ritual, what? But you then also said magic. So can you kind of expound on like what it is,
Sure.
what you mean by that?
Yeah, and it's not just in the US. Here, I think in all Black communities, the idea of ritual is like, oh, that's something that like fetish priests do, or that's like some voodoo stuff, But ritual really is, it's an ancestral technology for making change. That's all it is. A ritual doesn't have to involve slaughtering sheep and whatever other things people are scared of. A ritual can literally just be, I am creating this space. I'm creating this space for healing. I'm going to drink this herbal concoction. I'm going to speak to my ancestors, and that's it. It doesn't even have to be that mystical. A ritual can literally just be, it's the new moon, so I'm going to write a journal entry and then maybe meditate or take a bath. That's a ritual as well. So for me, a ritual is energy plus intention. So you have the intention of what you're trying to do, and then you do the actions that have the right energy behind them. And that's all a ritual is. In terms of magic, when I say magic, I'm talking about magic with a K, which is, the way I understand it is a way of creating transformational change. So again, it doesn't have to be mystical. It doesn't have to be, juju or whatever people want to call it. Even, going to the gym every day and losing weight is magic. Meditating every day and feeling calmer is magic. Magic is anything that creates transformational change within our lives, and ritual is a really good tool for creating magic.
That's
beautiful.
The word that we try to separate ourselves from, but I love how you define that.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
It was. You kind of spoke to it, like distinguishing between African-centered, African wellness and African spirituality. I know when I read your book, and even when I was talking to Queen about it, my mind kept saying African spirituality. And then when I read that down, I was like, she's saying wellness, and she's distinguishing, and I think that also was just wondering how much of this is like unconscious, like again, that's internalized thing of like anything African is just like the spiritual thing that's not for me. I don't know, just like putting it in a bucket and not distinguishing it. But could you kind of tell me, do you hint on spirituality at all in the book, or like tell me the importance of distinguishing it? Yeah.
So there's a really fine line between wellness and spirituality. I would say in certain chapters of the book, so I do talk about African spirituality in the book, mainly trying to undo some of the misconceptions about it. But in terms of what I present to people as practices, I really try to make it so that, like I said, even if you're Christian or Muslim or anything else, you can do some of the practices in the book. I think the most spiritual section is the ancestors chapter. And even in that, I explained that ancestral veneration is simply respecting your ancestors. There's a way that you can do it, which doesn't have to be spiritual if you don't want it to be. It can just be learning more about your ancestors. Who were they? What did they do? It can be looking at photo albums. It can be telling your children stories of your ancestors. It's just doing things that honor them and remember them. And then all the way at the other end, with the more spiritual side, you can, of course, set up an ancestor altar. You can be pouring libations to them. But the important distinction, I guess, between wellness and spirituality is wellness is truly for everyone. African-centered wellness is for all Black people, no matter what your spiritual beliefs. And then as you come deeper into African spirituality, you're obviously more likely to maybe let go of some of the other religions. So it's kind of a continuum rather than two separate things, I would say.
I got you. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of overlap. But
Yeah.
like you said, there's kind of like picking up what works for you or resonates for you and what aligns with your values, and not just throwing it all in one bucket.
Exactly.
Is there an ebook?
Yes, there is. So it's available to pre-order on Amazon now, actually. So you can order the ebook as well.
Oh, beautiful. I love
I
that.
love that.
An audiobook. I spent like 3 days recording.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Look, I'm thinking about reading. Oh, so it's your voice.
It's the ebook, yeah.
Oh, is that your thing, Queen? Listening to this?
Yeah, I do like to listen. For whatever reason, when I get a book in my face, it just puts me to sleep. I think it's normal, honestly, but I think I'm a lot more engaged when I can hear the book.
Okay,
but
interesting.
I love how you did I guess a contest for artists to create the book cover. That was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
I've seen the whole transition of it. I guess they wanted you to make it less non-fiction, the imagery.
Yeah, exactly. So so we had George Dorku, who was the winner of that competition, and he created this gorgeous cover. And we did the whole process. He worked with my publisher, Hay House, and we got to a cover that we liked. But then the feedback from the sales teams was that it looks like a fiction book. It does look, it looks like a fiction cover. And so that could impact sales because people might not look at it because they'll think it's a fiction versus nonfiction. So then we ended up going with kind of what every nonfiction book looks like, really, text-based. But yeah, I love we kept the kind of Starry Night feel from the competition winner's entry. So yeah, hopefully it still looks good.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. I definitely loved what he came up with also. So I mean, if y'all want to come out with some journals or some merch, I would definitely support. I loved his imagery.
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was beautiful.
I love that. So when you think about how you want this book to be received, utilized either by an individual, a group, or org or whatever, I don't know if you do have plans around that. what do you think, how do you foresee them taking this and utilizing this and adding value to their space, their adding value to themselves, and how do you see it being?
Yeah, I mean, we talked earlier about community healing. I really hope that this book becomes, I guess, a framework, or at least a catalyst for conversations, for wellness practices, wellness groups. I really, really hope that it can be used in such a way that people take what's in the book and then are able to use it to elevate the Black community, so whether that's through book clubs, whether that's through, I would love to have a schools program at some point. I'd love to do so many things. But yeah, I just really hope that anyone who reads the book, it shouldn't end with them, whether I think, did I write this? I think at the back of the book I wrote, if you're done, please pass it on to someone else. So it's that kind of thing. I don't want it to end when the reader closes the page. I want them to make change based on it. I want them to share it with other people. I want them to be encouraged to maybe create their own African-centered wellness groups and communities.
I have a question.
Yes.
On the spot, right? So you mentioned basically relying on your elders and whatnot. Do you have any tips for anyone who might not have that elderly support system? They might be also going through their own journey of healing. Like, where do you recommend these people find, or people find in general, the elderly support and wisdom that you speak about?
That's a really good question. I think that, first of all, the ancestors are essentially elders who've transitioned. So I think building a personal relationship with your ancestors is a really good starting point. And, that can also be difficult for people who feel like they don't know who their ancestors are. I always say you don't actually need to know them by name. You can just say, hey, ancestors, it's an energy, it's an energetic thing. So you don't need to know your lineage or your heritage specifically to be able to speak to your ancestors. Secondly, I think because we have moved away from living in communities where there's the council of elders and stuff like that, we also need to recognize that elders can be found in many more places than they used to be. Elders can be found through reading their books. Elders can be found through, reading research papers. Your elders can be people you've never met. There's other people out there who are on similar journey to you, whether that's a professional journey, a spiritual journey, a personal journey, and they've created content, whether it's a documentary, a book, a piece of art, whatever it is. So you can also engage with elders that way by identifying people who you might not know personally, but whose knowledge you can somehow tap into.
I love that advice. Okay. Yeah, because I've always wondered, my mother would technically be my ancestor. She passed. But then I kind of just look around and I'm like, I don't necessarily have a lot of older people to lean on sometimes. And so I've always wondered, how can I get that?
Yeah.
Folks got their own healing process that they're going through, but I just know that when you need that elderly advice, it's like, who do you go to?
I completely understand. I definitely would say, yeah, building a relationship with ancestors, but also, joining community groups, like whether it's a Black yoga group or whatever, you find that at these kind of spaces, you'll actually meet elders there as well. It's not only 20 and 30 something people going to yoga retreats and stuff like that. Yeah. So putting yourself in those kind of spaces, Black-centered wellness spaces, can also help you connect with elders who, maybe they're not from your family, maybe you've only just met them, but they can still provide that kind of elderly knowledge and support.
That is so true, Araba. We had a retreat like in October, I hosted with Amma the Goddess, and it was a yoga retreat.
Mm.
And the elders showed up, and I was just like, I didn't expect it because I was just thinking, oh, with people in our age bracket would be glued to it, but it was people, older people who were drawn to it's a wellness space, and wellness is really knows no age limit. So
Yeah.
it's nice to have their presence. It was nice to see like younger men talking to older women
Right.
and creating a space where that could happen is beautiful. Because like Queen is a lot like a lot of people. They don't have the privilege, and that's an honor and a privilege to still be able to tap in and to your elders and have those older people.
100%.
And not everybody has that, and that's so right. Like wellness spaces are where you can find them. So yeah, and so you I don't know if you had any last minute questions or anything to share, Araba Queen.
Oh man, I had plenty of questions, but we'll talk. I mean, because I see that you have your Oracle deck, you do cards.
Yeah.
I was like, what? So hold on, wait. So what system do you? Is it tarot or what? How would you
No,
describe?
I guess that, yeah, they're oracle cards based on Adinkra, which is a writing system of West Africa. So it's not tarot, they're just their own cards, and you can kind of read them however, or basically their ancestral guidance, because at least how I view card reading is basically the cards are just a tool for your ancestors to speak to you.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love that. They were beautiful too. So I'm definitely where can people find, I guess, all your merch and everything that you have?
Thank you. So I'm working on the second edition of the Oracle deck now. It should be out in April/May. So if you follow me on Instagram, that's where you'll get all the updates. I'm on Instagram at araba.oa.
Awesome. And I see you got a birthday coming up. Your birthday's what? The day before the book comes out?
Yes. And it'll be my 33rd birthday, my Jesus year.
Oh, we're both 30. Okay. Happy early birthday.
Thank you.
I love that. I didn't even realize that. I love that you knew that, Queen. Happy early birthday.
I told you I stalked her.
Excellent stalking skills. Seriously.
Listen, we're gonna have her back on, Queen. Don't worry. We can have her back on and talk about all these things, do the readings. And I love that. I almost want to like do a Black Around the World book club with Return to Source.
We could definitely do that. We could definitely do that for sure.
Like cross what do you call those things that people draw? What do you call that?
Diagram, some type of
like cross the water, cross border type of situation where you have in this like online book club type situation. We'll see.
That'd be beautiful.
Utilize your deck and things like that. It's such an honor to have you on.
Yes.
On our show. I definitely have enjoyed this rich conversation. Definitely looking forward to reading the book and seeing what you do with the book and just see what you do in general.
Thank you.
So yeah, everybody listening, I just want to say, like you said, go follow her. You said it's on Amazon. The book, everything's on Amazon.
Yeah, you can actually get it from any bookstore. Just if you want to support your local bookseller, you can just go in there and ask them to order it for you. But yeah, it's on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Target, all of those kind of places.
Beautiful.
And how can the people find you? One more time.
You can find me on Instagram at araba.oa. That's ARABA.oa.
And she has some really cool like resources on her Instagram page. Meditation. I see you have like guided meditation. You have some cool playlists, quizzes. So I encourage everybody to go check out her IG for sure.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Of course.
We'll share
and where can they find us, Ray?
Yeah, definitely. We'll share that in the show notes where to find that link, just in case you need to see it. And y'all can find us on Instagram at @blackaroundtheworld_, on YouTube. We're kind of playing with the idea, do we want to be YouTubers, or do we want to just wait? Just want to be listening? Like, we're just trying to like tap into people. I know that Queen is visual, I'm like audio, I listen. And so we want to be able for it to be accessible and enjoyable for everybody. But we are on Spotify as well. I think we're still working on getting on other
we're working on it.
Yeah, but we'll hopefully, we'll get it done soon. So Black Around the World _ connect with us, share your thoughts. If you have any ideas on new shows, any questions, hit us up, Black Around the World, the podcast.
And what's your personal? You want to leave your personal?
Yeah, my personal, I'm more active on Instagram, and that's ama.ray on IG, at ama.ray. What about you?
I'm at Queen_AVE. No, Queenwood, just kidding. At Queenwood_AVE. Throw that out there.
And we're gonna share, try to get this out. The book is coming out April 4th, is what you said? Yeah.
Yes.
April 4th. The day before her birthday.
Day after.
Or after her birthday.
Yeah.
Day after her birthday.
Yes.
All right. Thank you again, everybody.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. This was amazing.
Yes.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Stay Black, everybody. Bye.